Hello everyone. I kind of wanted to cover this deck analysis that I put together for my brother to kind of describe, what's it about, what is it, those sort of details. But to begin, I wanted to describe a little bit about my background and how I um, came to put one of these together. I have various degrees in chemistry, manufacturing, quality assurance, that sort of thing. I've worked in manufacturing for over a decade, in a lab for over 7 years, and there I've been testing components and raw material for qualitative and quantitative properties of materials and parts and stuff like that. So I wanted to take a lot of what I learned and apply it to this, because I figured it would really help some users and players understand their decks and how they tick and that sort of thing. So the report, first begins with information about the user, the, the name of the deck, the region, the platform that's been used, the format, that sort of thing is all found up here. And then the next concept we find is a benchmark comparison from state, regional to national level. And then you'll find certain elements at the top, which kind of describe, say, the flavor or the main key concepts or genre of a deck, such as draw, in-battle effects, removal, hand effects, search, control, recursion, protection, immunity, restriction, other, and the list goes on. So generally, that benchmark comparison will compare decks of a similar fashion from state to regional to national level. Then the next area we have an overall deck attributes, which is similar to that but broken down by offense, defense, neutral cards, as well as like number values for certain elements of the deck, such as draw effects, removal effects, control, recursion, protection, things of the nature. And then we also have a card type distribution, like the actual number value and percentage of card types within and throughout the deck, right? So that'll give you an idea of, say, you want to understand how much of a percentage of your deck is, say, evil in dominance. Like this particular deck, it has 4 evil dominance, so roughly about 7% of the deck has evil dominance, broken down in that sort of fashion. Then you also have it broken down by overall color distribution. So you'll have all your brigades here, the number values and the percentages, as well as good, neutral, and evil. So you get an idea of, say, the multicolored cards that are good in the offense, roughly about 7 cards, so roughly that's about 13% of the deck that's multicolored offensive cards. And then you also have deck balance. So the deck balance gives you an idea of how much of a percentage the deck is offensive or defensive. So kind of like a rating. So generally, the more cards you have for offense, the deck is more offensive. The more for defense, the deck is more defensive. So you get an idea of the balance. So generally, if it's in between 45 to 65%, that's kind of a little bit like neutral, or it's a balanced deck, and anything beyond those numbers for a particular offense or defense makes it highly offensive or highly defensive, that sort of concept. Then we also have a construction trend analysis. So if you were to monitor your deck consistently using this technique or report, this concept monitors how the deck changes and gives you number values and that sort of thing. So you have it broken down by numbers of card types and totals, and then this will show you any changes. But for example, just for purposes' sake, this particular deck, this is the first time this was put through an analysis, so that's why everything here is equal. But what's really cool I like about this is the risk management analysis. So it's a table that kind of breaks down in numbers and in percentages where a deck is strong or where it's weak. So you'll have the certain key elements or concepts of the deck, like draw, removal, control, search, and generally colors in green, it's strong. Where it's in orange, it's pretty, it's fair, it's acceptable. Red is where it's weak. It either has, like, say, one card or no card um, that provide that sort of ability or outcome in a deck. If it's acceptable, it's generally 2 to 3 cards, and if it's 4 and beyond, that's pretty strong. So that's why you'll see it in green. And at the bottom, you'll see the number value and the percentage. This particular deck is mainly defensive, according to these numbers. And then, as far as risk, acceptable, and strength, so anything in this column, these X's show the areas where a deck is pretty weak. For example, like in battle effects, it really only has in battle effects for the defense, which roughly plays out about 5% of the deck, which is why it's pretty risky in that area of the deck. And then this deck is really strong in removal and control. So in control here, we see the offense, the neutral cards, and the defense are all in green. So that is definitely one of the best features of this deck. In this one, the removal effects, the offense is fairly acceptable. There's not really much neutral cards that contribute to the removal effects. And then you have a good number, 8 cards for defense that are removal. So that's why it's a strong number here. That's why you see that this is considered a strength for the deck. But if you look at it from offense to neutral to defense, you see it's mainly strong because mainly the defense has this abundance of removal. Compared to control, it's balanced, where the offense, neutral cards, and defense are all abundant, which is what makes the deck strong in that area. Then we have some best practices, which is, tips on how to improve your deck, how to play better. You also have the situation analysis. Maybe people might look at it as meta, or so anyways, so you'll have helpful concepts and harmful concepts, both internal and external. So this particular deck, internal strengths are control, removal, recursion, and then harmful being weaknesses where the deck can improve is hand protection. The deck lacks search, so it probably wants to have more search cards, and it doesn't do well with in-battle effects. So these are areas where the deck is weak. So when you see something where the deck is strong internally, externally, where you have opportunities where you want to capitalize and deploy your strategy, are basically decks that are dependent on characters, decks that lack control elements, decks with limited characters. That's where you'll see this deck it'll thrive and have a good outcome. But then threats to the deck, like externally, where you're opposing other players or facing against other decks, where you want to avoid this, and in a competitive atmosphere, decks like hand discard decks, other recursion decks, and decks that have strong in-battle effects or rely on banding chains, because this deck doesn't have really too many answers for these sort of concepts. So the player that plays this deck, these are things they want to avoid. These are things they want to capitalize on. And then, of course, you have the deck list, so you understand the contents of the deck. You also have some terminology broken down. And then lastly, you have the certification of record that shows that all the test methods and data that's provided in this report is true and accurate, validated through several certifications and accreditations. All right, so I hope that kind of clears up what a deck analysis is and what's it about. Thanks.